Previously on this investigation, we revealed a chilling voicemail, a vanishing suspect, and Deana Cremins' lost notebook, recovered nearly 3 decades after her death. Inside were cryptic entries, a hand-drawn map, and a single word written again and again, alone. But it was the route sketched on the back cover that raised the most disturbing question. Had Deana been planning to avoid someone or something? Now we follow that map, and what we find is a path that leads not just through the woods of 10 Hills, but directly into the shadows of another forgotten case. One that, until now, no one connected to Deana Cremins. Let's start with the route. We walked it, the 10 Hills path, roughly 1.5 miles of twisting wooded trail behind the Assembly Row neighborhood, leading from the vicinity of Deana's school to a secluded bend near the Mystic River. Today it's been developed, cleared, but in 1995, it was dense, isolated, with only one exit toward Route 28. According to Deana's recovered journal, she had discovered this path weeks before her murder. She referred to it as her quiet way home. And here's what matters. Her body wasn't found on this route. It was found blocks away, near Jacques Street, which means if she had intended to take the 10 Hills path that night, something changed her course, or someone intercepted her. Now here's where the story twists. In 1992, 3 years before Deana's death, another young woman, Michelle Vecchio, 19, was found dead just off the 10 Hills trail. Official cause of death: undetermined. No signs of sexual assault. No visible trauma. The case went cold. But the details eerily similar. She was found partially clothed, her shoes missing, and one wrist bound with a shoelace. We obtained a copy of the original police report from Michelle's case. And buried in the narrative? A note from a responding officer. Area shows signs of prior clearing. Trash minimal. Path swept or cleaned recently. Just like in Deana's case. And here's the part no one ever connected until now. In 1992, Anthony Palumbo worked part-time for a landscaping crew contracted to maintain the eastern edge of the 10 Hills property line. His timesheets place him near the trail, exactly 2 weeks before Michelle Vecchio was found dead. That connection was never investigated. We spoke to Detective Carla Mendoza, now retired, who reviewed the Michelle Vecchio case in 2001 as part of a pattern recognition task force. Her words: "I flagged it, but there was no forensic evidence, no DNA, and no known overlap between the victims. Different schools, no social link. The cases just sat separate. But I always had a feeling, so we dug deeper." We interviewed Michelle Vecchio's younger sister, Lena, who remembered something haunting. Michelle kept saying someone was watching her on the walk home. That spring she had a panic attack in the woods. Said she saw someone behind a tree, just staring. She tried to tell our mom, but people thought she was just anxious. Sound familiar? It mirrors what Deana wrote in her final entry. "I know that face now. I just don't know his name." So now we had 2 young women. Same town. Similar profiles. Similar deaths. And one man with an unshakable proximity to both scenes. Anthony Palumbo. But we still didn't have the final piece. Until a surprise break came from a digital archivist in Everett. Working through old voicemail reels donated from a shuttered crime tip line, they discovered another audio message, left anonymously in 1995. This one was never retrieved, because the tip line server crashed the same week. Here's the transcript. Voicemail, male, undistorted. "You don't see what's in front of you. It's not random. She knew the way, the quiet way, but she trusted the wrong one. He watched them both. He's still watching." We ran the voice through AI-assisted voice matching. No confirmed identity, but the tone? Different than the first voicemail. Calmer, almost remorseful. We began to ask a new question. Could there be 2 people? Was someone else involved? Or worse, was someone else trying to warn us? That leads us to a name we haven't said yet. Daniel Kerns, a childhood friend of Anthony Palumbo. Their families knew each other, grew up on the same block. Kerns worked as a janitor at Somerville High in the early 90s. According to old employment records, he worked the night shift, alone. From 5 p.m. to midnight, he would have seen Deana Cremins. And more than that, he would have had access to the school's back door, the one that led directly toward the 10 Hills path. So why does this matter? Because in 1996, Daniel Kerns was quietly fired for what the district called a pattern of inappropriate behavior and trespassing on restricted campus areas. That file? Sealed. Until now. We submitted a request through an educational transparency loophole and obtained a redacted portion. One line stood out. Kerns was found inside the girls' locker area after hours. No students present. Claimed he was checking a leak. He was never charged. Never questioned about Deana. But there's something else. In 1997, Kerns was briefly institutionalized for what court records described as delusional ideation and paranoia. He was released, disappeared from the public record. Until last week, we tracked a forwarding address from an old utility account and located him, living in a state-run assisted living facility under supervised care. He's 61. And when we spoke with him, off camera, he told us this. You're asking the wrong questions. You think it was just him. It wasn't. He wanted to scare her. He told me, but it went bad. And then she wouldn't stop screaming. He panicked. He said, they'll think I was trying to. And then he cried. I never saw him cry before. We pressed him. Who was he? Was it Anthony? Kerns stared at the ground and whispered, we were just watching. That's all. Watching. That single word, watching, keeps returning. Michelle Vecchio said it. Deana wrote it. Witnesses remember it. And now, a second man close to Anthony has confessed to being there. So what does this mean? We believe Deana Cremins was the victim of a planned, targeted, and possibly dual perpetrator crime. We believe the scene was staged. And we believe there was an attempted cover-up, possibly aided by personal connections within local enforcement at the time. But it's not just about Deana anymore. It's about a pattern. 2 girls, 2 trails, 2 bodies. And now 2 voices. The question is, why now? Why are these pieces surfacing? And who sent the anonymous letters? Soon in this part, we track the origin of the typewriter used to draft one of the threats. We interview a woman who says she dated Anthony Palumbo in 1995, and who claims she found blood-stained shoes in the back of his closet weeks after Deana's death. And finally, we receive an email. Anonymous. Timestamped 3:09 a.m. No subject line, just one sentence. You found the map. You're close. He's not done yet. Stay with us and subscribe to this channel, because this chapter might be the one that breaks it wide open. Previously on this investigation, we connected Deana Cremins' murder to a second cold case. We tracked a forgotten witness, a disturbing confession, and a notebook with a hidden map. And then we received a message. No name, no subject. Just one sentence. You found the map. You're close. He's not done yet. Now the story accelerates. Because we now believe someone is watching this investigation closely. And they're not just watching. They're responding. Let's start with the anonymous letter from part 3. The one that warned, you should have left it buried. This doesn't bring her back. It just brings more bodies. That letter was typed on an IBM Wheelwriter 1500. A bulky electric typewriter common in schools and government offices in the early 1990s. We worked with a forensic typist to examine the document. And here's what we learned. Wheelwriters leave distinctive imprints. Tiny shifts in alignment that act almost like a fingerprint. Using pressure pattern analysis, the expert concluded, this specific typewriter has a misaligned lowercase e. It dips below the line. That narrows it to fewer than 200 known units purchased by the city of Somerville in 1991. We obtained procurement records. Out of those 200 units, only 11 were ever assigned to Somerville High School. And only one, unit #109B, was listed as missing in a 1997 audit. The last known user of that machine? Daniel Kerns, the same man who admitted, quietly, indirectly, that he and Anthony Palumbo had been watching Deana Cremins in the weeks before her murder. The same man who said, he panicked. We brought this to retired Detective Marcus Bell. Here's what he told us. This is what we call a suppressed lead. Something that slipped through or was pushed aside. If the machine used to type that letter matches one last assigned to Kerns, that puts him on the hook. But here's what really matters. Who had access to that letter now? Someone is preserving evidence or threatening to expose it. Because that letter wasn't just typed. It was mailed using a stamp from 1995. A stamp never circulated beyond the New England region. Which means the sender didn't just type the letter using a 30-year-old machine. They mailed it using a 30-year-old stamp. This wasn't a spontaneous warning. It was a message preserved in time. But preserved by who? And why now? That's when she came forward. Her name is Deana Cremins. She contacted us anonymously after watching Part 4. And after 3 encrypted messages, she agreed to meet on one condition. No cameras. No names. What she told us changes everything. Deana Cremins was 19 in 1995. She was a waitress at a small diner off Mystic Avenue. And for several months, she dated Anthony Palumbo. She described him as quiet, intense, always looking past you, not at you. She ended the relationship in late March, just days before Deana's murder. Here's her story in her words. I went to pick up a jacket I'd left at his place. He let me in. He was distracted, like he was buzzing. I don't know how else to explain it. While he was in the kitchen, I went to grab my stuff from his room. His closet door was open, and I saw this pair of white sneakers. Dirty, like really dirty, but it was the stains. Brown-red, spotted across the laces. I remember thinking, why would he just leave them there? She didn't confront him. She left. 3 days later, she saw the news about Deana. She never went back, never spoke of it. Until now, we asked her, why come forward after 30 years? Her answer, because I saw your story, and I saw her notebook. The map, that was the trail behind the diner. He used to talk about it. He said it was where he went to clear his head. I think he followed her. I think he knew where she walked. And I think he waited. We've tried to locate the shoes. But Anthony Palumbo disappeared after our undercover approach. And the property has since changed hands. No trace remains. But Deana Cremins' statement was given under sworn affidavit. It has now been forwarded to the Middlesex County Cold Case Unit. We reached out for comment. They declined. But off the record, a source within the DA's office told us this. This case is heating up. Too many points of convergence. We're re-examining everything. And then came the second email. 2:14 a.m. From the same anonymous account. No subject. This time a photo. Grainy. Black and white. But unmistakable. It shows Deana Cremins. Standing outside Somerville High. Looking left. Behind her 2 men. One appears to be Anthony Palumbo. The other shorter, slightly hunched. Likely Daniel Kerns. There is no record of this photo in the original case file. No indication it was ever submitted to police. But on the back, faint handwriting reads, she was already marked. Was this surveillance, stalking, or documentation? We've run the photo through enhancement software. The timestamp in the corner suggests March 28, 1995, just 2 nights before Deana was murdered. So here's what we now believe. Deana Cremins was stalked. She was followed along the 10 Hills path. She may have confided in more than one person. And 2 men, both known to each other, watched her, tracked her, and on the night of March 29, one of them acted. Possibly both. We also believe the letter, the voicemail, and the emails are coming from someone inside the original circle. A third party. A former accomplice? A witness? Or someone trying to manipulate the investigation? Because the final message, received just this week, reads, you think you're solving it. You're not. You're only making noise. You think he ran. He didn't run. He was taken. Because he broke the rule. The rule was, no one touches her. Let's read that again. The rule was, no one touches her. Was Deana Cremins targeted by someone inside a larger ring? Was she protected until she wasn't? And if Anthony Palumbo didn't flee on his own, then who made him disappear? and why. Soon in this part, we travel to western Pennsylvania, the last known location of Anthony Palumbo. We speak to a scrapyard worker who says a man matching his description vanished just hours after a black SUV with no plates showed up near the trailer. And we uncover a sealed civil complaint from 1998, linking a former Somerville detective to a mysterious private security contract operating inside school districts across Massachusetts in the 1990s. The pattern is no longer isolated, and someone doesn't want this case reopened. But we're opening it anyway, because Deana deserves the full truth. Not the cleaned version. Not the official version. The whole truth. Stay with us and subscribe to this channel. This chapter may not just explain what happened to Deana. It may reveal who's been protecting the men who did it, and what they're willing to do to keep it buried. Previously on this investigation, we uncovered new testimony implicating Anthony Palumbo, connected a decades-old typewriter to a chilling threat, and received a cryptic email warning us. He didn't run. He was taken. Now, we follow that claim to its most ominous conclusion. Because this episode doesn't just advance the case, it blows it open. Let's start with the disappearance. After our last on-camera attempt to confront Anthony Palumbo, he vanished. No activity on his phone. No digital footprint. No sightings. Until we got a call from a scrapyard employee in rural Armstrong County, Pennsylvania. We'll call him Jeff. He reached out after seeing our series, and what he told us shifts the entire narrative. Here's Jeff. About 6, maybe 7 weeks ago, this guy shows up, middle-aged, jumpy, real quiet, didn't give a name, paid cash, said he was staying in an old trailer behind the river lot. Folks around here didn't ask questions. But what stood out? He had a scar, like right here on the neck, deep, looked fresh, kept checking over his shoulder. Jeff didn't know him, but when we showed him a photo of Anthony Palumbo, he nodded. That's him, or his ghost. Then came the twist. Jeff says, one night, around 3 a.m., a black SUV with no plates pulled into the scrapyard's south gate. Tinted windows. 2 men stepped out, said nothing, walked toward the trail behind the lot, and never returned. By morning, the trailer? Empty. Clothes left behind. Food half-eaten. But no sign of Anthony Palumbo. We asked Jeff, did he call police? He hesitated, then said, you ever get the sense that if you talk, you'll regret it? That's what this felt like. That wasn't a rescue. That was a cleanup. We returned to Massachusetts, tried to trace the SUV, but there were no security cameras in the area. The scrapyard's footage? Deleted. System reset the same night. Remotely. That's when we asked a new question. Why would anyone go to such lengths to make Anthony Palumbo vanish? Unless he was about to talk, and had already said too much. So we dug into his last known employment records. That's when we discovered something buried deep inside a 1998 sealed civil filing, redacted for confidential municipal contracts. We petitioned for partial access through a transparency clause linked to the Massachusetts Open Records Act. And we got it. Inside the filing, one name, Detective Christopher D'Onofrio, assigned to Somerville PD, 1989 to 2002. On paper, a solid record. Off paper, he operated a private security consultancy, specializing in school district surveillance, background checks, and what was described as non-traditional behavioral threat assessments. The consultancy received a Quiet City grant and hired 2 part-time civilian observers in 1994, both unlicensed, both using school janitorial roles as cover. Their names were redacted, but one file, missed in the redaction, mentions a maintenance worker referred to as DK, Daniel Kerns, the same man who admitted indirectly to being present the night Deana Cremins died. So here's the working theory. In 1994, Deana Cremins, bright, vocal, engaged in civic projects, may have become aware that something wasn't right in her school. She wrote in her notebook, "He's watching people. He writes things down. I think he follows them. It's not for the school." What if Deana had begun to see past the surface? What if she saw something she wasn't meant to see? What if she was targeted not randomly, not impulsively, but because she was asking questions? We interviewed a former Somerville teacher, speaking anonymously. She remembered Deana as smart, a connector, someone who couldn't look the other way. And then she added this: there were rumors that year about male staff following certain girls. One student said she was photograph changing. The school dismissed it as a prank. But Deana was furious. She made noise. Too much noise, maybe. Let's connect the dots. Daniel Kerns embedded as a janitor under a covert program. Anthony Palumbo connected through family ties. Deana Cremins potentially witnesses or uncovers surveillance or misconduct. A private security contract with no oversight. And a detective with ties to all of it. That's no longer coincidence. That's infrastructure. And infrastructure doesn't crumble unless someone pulls it down. Which brings us to the most recent email. Received this morning. Same anonymous sender. Same format. No subject. Just a series of digits. 199E 03-29-2139. We ran it through every filter. Date and time. March 29, 1995. 9:39 p.m. The night of Deana's murder. But what's the code? One of our researchers found it in an old Somerville PD radio dispatch log. Unit 199E, a temporary ID used for non-patrol, off-duty officers assisting on security details. That unit was logged on the radio from Assembly Avenue at 9:39 p.m., reporting all quiet on the river trail. But here's the catch. That unit was never accounted for. There is no record of who was assigned to 199E that night. And the officer on dispatch? Detective Christopher D'Onofrio. We attempted to contact D'Onofrio for comment. No response. According to property records, he relocated to rural Maine in 2003. We'll be visiting that address next. But one final discovery stopped us in our tracks. Remember the final page of Deana's journal? The word repeated over and over? Alone. Under infrared scan, another message, barely visible. Written with light pressure. It reads, I told them. They said don't talk. They said I'd be sorry. This wasn't fear of a random predator. This was fear of people she knew and trusted. In part 3, we go to Maine to confront the man whose private operation was embedded in Somerville schools. We uncover what might be a third connected death, this time in Arlington, 1996. And a shocking voicemail arrives, with a voice we haven't heard since part 2, the distorted caller. Only now, the voice isn't distorted. It's clear. And it says, this isn't over. It was never just her. You want the truth? Then come to where it ended. Mystic River. Dock 4. Midnight. Alone. We're going. And we're bringing a camera. Because if they want silence, we're choosing to speak. Stay with us and subscribe to this channel.